Streetsboro Board of Education, December 14th, 2023, regular school board meeting. Don't we do a...
Call the roll.
Oh yeah, call the roll, please.
Bradford.
I'm sorry. Here.
Mrs. Campbell.
Here.
Mrs. Epple.
Here.
Mr. Grimm.
Here.
Mr. Violi. Here.
All right, moving on to Pledge of Allegiance. Sorry about that, guys.
We're on your time.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The last meeting of the year. The first and the last are always the most entertaining. Okay, moving on to public comments. Mr. Haynes?
There are no public comments.
Okay. Moving on to approval of minutes. It is recommended the Board of Education approve the minutes from the November 9th, 2023 regular meeting as submitted.
I'll move.
Second?
We have a first and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. Mr. Haynes?
Bedford.
Yes.
Mr. Grimm.
Yes.
Mrs. Campbell.
Yes.
Mrs. Epple.
Yes.
Mr. Violi.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. Moving on to superintendent's report.
Thank you. I'd like to begin by inviting our principals from Streetsville Elementary School, Henry Deffer Intermediate, and the high school to come up to the podium. And while they're on their way forward, they're all looking at me like, okay, here they come. It's like, that's what I had on the agenda. So if you remember 2 months back, Ms. Taylor from the middle school, along with Mr. Wepler, presented what they're doing with staff in regards to a new initiative we've had in place this year where we are really focusing on isolating test data, really drilling down into the individual needs of students, and being creative with how we offer intervention to individual students. They're building-wide initiatives. The principals are reporting back to us every month, and we have individual meetings with the buildings regarding that each month. So we have today the 2 elementary buildings as well as the high school that will share with you what they're doing in reference to what I just talked about. So it looks like we're starting with Streetsboro Elementary and Henry Deffer Intermediate.
All right. Good evening. Thank you for having us. So I'm going to start us off talking a little bit about how we use the data and the benchmarking tools and some of those things that we hear about, and talk a little bit more specifically about how we use them and how they affect the day-to-day in the building. And then Gwen's going to talk about also then how that impacts our teacher teams, our PLCs. So I have presented to the board before about WIN a little bit, so I just want to quickly review. It's essentially our intervention period in the day, but it also meets the needs of students on grade level as well as students who need extension. So it's not just an intervention. It's what I need is what WIN stands for. So that's for every single kid. What do they need for us to help them grow? So then we've done WIN quite differently every year over the past several years, and we've now kind of settled on, at our BLT today, we actually joked that we finally found the, just right porridge, so to speak. You know, it's too hot, too cold. So we've done it a few different ways where we used to alternate days, which was a little bit chaotic for the kids. Then we just alternated between each semester, which was not enough frequency of intervention for math and reading. So now we're alternating weeks at Deffer. And that's kind of our sweet spot of where the kids are getting math intervention for a week and then reading for the next week. So they're getting that consistently. So related to the data, how do we group the students? So we take the benchmarking data from MAP, which we have for reading and math, and then also what's called M-class data. That's another system that we use that specifically dials into every student's fluency scores, so how many words can they read in a minute, and their accuracy, which is, you know, out of the words that they read, did they read 99% of them correct? So the teachers do that individually with the kids. The student sits down one-on-one with the teacher and they track how many words they read and if they made any mistakes. In addition to that, we also have some screeners that we use. So there are tools that our literacy coach will use to dig even further into a student's phonics skills. Our math program has screeners from Bridges. That's the math program that we use. It has screeners that will then dial even further into what intervention a student needs and then what module we should use. And then I jokingly put, but it's very serious, it's a huge color-coded spreadsheet. Like literally, it's like I don't know, 20 columns wide with every single kid color-coded based on all of that data. And then our reading and math coaches then take all that data and group the kids based on similar needs for reading and then similar needs for math. So then I have a visual for you to kind of like see what it really looks like. So this is currently right now in my building our 4th grade groups on Blue Week. So you can see these are all the adults working with kids, which is a lot of adults. But that's how many it takes in order to have students in the smaller groups that it really requires to do intervention. So for example, on the top left there, Mrs. Barnes's group, she has 24 students. That's an on-grade level group. So they have 24 kids because they are functioning at the grade level skills. So it's essentially a full class size. Whereas some of the smaller groups that you see, those are groups that are getting intervention. And we're actually really lucky that the bottom row, the lighter blue, those are all of our math groups. So they're actually all really small. And the extra small groups are the ones getting the intervention kit through the Bridges program. And then, like I mentioned, we also do IEP services during that time as well as gifted services. So it really is an all hands on deck approach for us to really meet the kids' needs. And then this next slide is just what it looks like on Gold Week. So some of our students get the exact same services on both weeks because there are students who need the most intensive reading intervention. So like Mrs. Oyer, our reading coach, she actually runs a group every single day with our students who didn't meet the 3rd grade reading guarantee. So that's a very intensive group, and so they get reading every day, every week, to get them caught up and growing towards being on grade level.
SCS runs our win time quite similarly. We use for different grade levels, of course, M-class data. We aren't always necessarily just looking at fluency because we are really working on even more foundational skills. So letter name fluency, letter sound fluency, phoneme segmentation, if we're talking kindergarten, when we're talking about phonemic awareness skills. So, you know, we look at things a little bit differently because we're at the more basic literacy level and the more basic numeracy level. But essentially, we do run our WIN groups quite similarly to Henry Deffer. So what I wanted to share was what we are also doing K-5 at a Tier 1 instructional level, making data-driven decisions and using evidence-based practices within our instructional day. So what you're looking at here is some of the data that we are looking at not only in our building leadership teams, but also within our PLCs, which is by grade level. And then for 2nd and 3rd grade, it's departmentalized, whether we have teachers that are teaching ELA or teachers that are providing math instruction throughout the day. And what we are doing is looking at what our strengths are, where our challenges at an instructional level based on the strand in our curriculum, and also based upon how the state is weighing different standards for state testing. So this is an example of something that we were looking at just this week. This is a trend of our ELA scores from the past 3 years so that we could see where are we seeing growth, what are the instructional strategies that have resulted in the growth, and where do we go next. So we're gratified to see that we definitely have some strengths. We definitely are seeing positive momentum. We're very excited to see how much more growth that we're going to achieve this year, especially now that we have a solid ELA curriculum that really does focus on the state standards rather than the piecemeal method that we were using last year, trying to find our own resources. So, you know, we're off to a good start, but clearly we do have a ways to go. Also, when we're talking about adjusting our focus at the Tier 1 level, you'll see in the graphic to the left, we're looking very carefully at what does the state say our kids need to do well in, and what are the state's priorities. So you'll see that in the 3rd grade OST for this year, which we were just looking at our fall scores for 3rd grade, you'll see that the state really does require us us to put more of a focus on craft and structure and key ideas and details. And you'll see that the majority of the questions are those two standards. So it's really looking at the data at a Tier 1 level so that we have more large groups in the Tier 2 win time, so that we're providing more on-grade level reinforcement and also larger groups for that enrichment, and so that we have less kids that we have to intervene with. So this is how we are holistically, K through 5, looking at data, looking at resources, and applying personnel to meet the needs of our kids using data and evidence-based strategies. And then we take it to each individual grade level through our PLC meeting, where we are really analyzing the standard and what does that standard mean with depth of knowledge, and what are the sub-skills that students need to acquire at every grade level so that they are proficient or prepared for proficiency by 3rd grade. So we'll take a 3rd grade level standard and we'll peel it back. So what are the skills that they need to acquire by 2nd grade to be ready for this standard as a 3rd grader? What does that look like as a 1st grader to prepare for 2nd grade? What does that look as a kindergartner to prepare for 1st grade? And we really liken it to running a relay race where each grade level is a leg in that race, passing that baton to the next person. And we're really hopeful that by having these opportunities to look at the data, reflect what our instructional practices are resulting in educationally, also looking at the rigor of what we are teaching, look at what the standard says for us, what does the rigor of the test questions that the 3rd grade kids, what they're going to be exposed to, what does that rigor look like, so that we are better preparing our children for these challenges and then better preparing them when they do move on to the intermediate school. And that's it. If anybody has any questions, we're happy to answer them.
It's great to see the information. And I'm curious, end of school year, beginning of next year, what does that growth look like? The 2nd grader this year looks like what next year?
Right. We're really excited too, because we've seen a lot of growth. What's interesting and what was kind of an aha epiphany for our teachers is some of the strengths that we saw in our test scores really aren't priorities according to the state. And so that's really causing us to take a look at our pacing plans, our unit assessments. When are we teaching certain standards? To what level of rigor are we teaching those standards, and making those adjustments to meet those needs. We have tremendous teachers.
Yes.
Just shifting our focus is going to hopefully give us some pretty outstanding outcomes come spring.
Excellent. Thank you.
I have a question.
Yep.
Gwen, before you walk away, how much involvement do you get from the parents with the students that are having difficulty getting to that level that you need them to get to? I mean, I don't know if I'm asking the question the right way, but I think you're talking about a race and a baton, and those kids probably know where they're at, or they should know where they're at and what they're striving for. Do you see that excitement from them in the classroom to get to that next level, and where do the parents come in too?
Absolutely. The kids are excited. In fact, that is an evidence-based strategy. That's a high-yield strategy. It's human nature that we're not going to be very motivated to reach a goal if we aren't really clear about what that goal is. So we have had discussion about clear learning targets for children, giving them a clear understanding of what does proficiency look like, what are they trying to attain. So that has been very successful for the kids. We will continue to do that within our instructional day. I have found that the parents are very supportive. They are very concerned and involved in their children's progress. We have really great participation in conferences, as an example. Parents reach out all the time. Our teachers are very responsive. They communicate with the parents in whatever format parents want to be communicated with, whether it's face-to-face, phone call, email, class dojo. They are reaching out to the parents. And we also have, with our weekly newsletter, we have a very nice response from families staying involved, wanting to participate in the children's education, whether it be on the academic side or the social emotional side, or just being a room parent for, holiday parties or to support in any way. So I'm very pleased with the level of parent participation and concern for their children's academics.
Thank you.
That's great.
Okay, as they exit the stage and Mr. McCann comes up, I would like to say, too, that both of the buildings, Duffer and Streetsboro Elementary School, the thing from my perspective in central office is they've always been good at looking at data, but what they're really drilling down to in last year and especially this year is they're forcing, I think Gwen was the one that said it, the areas when we go back and analyze test data and our kids are performing well on, those are the areas we're also focusing on. And so perhaps the areas that we need to be focusing on are those, obviously, are those areas that they're not doing as well on. And they're using a tool called the CRS reporting system. It's basically archived test data from the previous test, and it shows you exactly the percentage of test questions by strand that they're asking and how kids across the state are performing. And that can help us then focus on what areas of the academic content areas that we need to be placing more of a focus on. And so now it's not just asking the question, it's asking the right question. So they're really helping with clarity and helping teachers see that, sure, we're doing good with this, but now maybe we need to be doing a little better with this over here. And so they're really pulling those pieces of data together to focus those questions rather than, if you do what you've always done, you're going to get what you always got. That old saying, if we're doing well on this set of standards all the time, well, then maybe our shift needs to be to the ones we're not doing. And they're doing a really good job drilling down into that. And to me, if you guys force me to say what's the one big difference between maybe the last year or two and years previous, it would be that area. And they have some more data tools to do that as well. So now you're going to see the opposite end of the spectrum, because as all of you know on the board, you in the elementary schools, we're preparing them to learn for a lifetime. And now we see the complete opposite end of the spectrum, where we're expecting these young men and women to pass these end of course exams and walk across the stage and go on into then college or career in life. So Brett's going to talk about what he's doing up there and what they're seeing.
Yep. All right, thank you for having me up here today. So, everything that I say in here is just a whole. It's a group effort. Mr. Bishop, our new assistant principal, has come in. He's been absolutely incredible, helping us, lead this work, and our teachers have been outstanding through this entire process, as well as we've really, looked to make that shift, like Mr. Dabaugh said, really honing in on data more so than we ever had before. So our goal this year is to improve on our 4.5-star rating that we had, and we want our overall emphasis to be on our performance index growth, and then also looking at certain components of our gap closure. And so basically, when I say performance index, the phrase that's up there is moving every student to their right. So what that means is that for all of our end of course exams, students are basically assigned like a 1 through 5 rating. So like our goal is to move all of our kids 1 over to the right. So if they received a 1 in the previous year, we want to move them to a 2. If they got a 2, we want to move them to a 3, so on and so forth. 1, because it helps our report card, but 2, like we want to continue seeing growth within our students. Like we want to continue pushing that envelope. And then also with the gap closure, basically what a gap closure is you're looking at your particular subgroups and how your particular subgroups are performing versus the rest of your entire population and how they're performing overall versus the rest of the state. So our goal is that no matter your background, no matter your race, no matter your socioeconomic status, we want all of our kids to succeed, and that is our overall goal. We don't want to succeed on the test, but we also want them to succeed every single day. We want them to have a plan once they get out of high school, and the best way to do that is to graduate with a high school diploma. So we kind of look at 4 big components whenever we go through our PLC process. Ensuring quality tier 1 instruction, basically what we're doing every single day in the classroom, what our teachers are best at. Evaluating data from assessments, we'll get into that a lot more. Data-informed decision-making, and then reevaluating learning at the conclusion of units to determine what we need to do to continue pushing our kids forward. So our big push this year has been the idea of common formative assessments. So in the past, kind of like the old school kind of way of thinking is that the teacher has their classroom and that they will then test on whatever they want to test. And whatever the teacher wants, that's what's going to be on the test. What we have found in education is the problem is, and I'm guilty of this when I was in the classroom myself, is that we assess and we teach what we enjoy teaching and what we want to teach. The problem is that those isn't always aligned to the standards. So the idea of common formative assessments is that we get our team together and our team collectively provides the same assessment no matter the teacher. So for example, every English 10 teacher or every English 10 student will take the same common formative assessment. Every single geometry teacher or every single geometry student will take the same geometry common formative assessment. It might be taught a different way by that teacher, and we don't want to take away that autonomy, but we want to make sure that our kids have the same exposure to the same curriculum and assess the same way so that they're all prepared the exact same way for that test. So we look at that as an assessment for learning. So what we do is we then take the results from the common formative assessment, and then we make changes to our instruction before the common summative begins. So basically how it is we have a beginning of a unit, and we teach. And along the way, we're informally assessing. You know, we do a thumbs up, thumbs down. We do what's called an exit slip, where we ask them a question at the end of the day, so on and so forth. But then at the end of our instruction, we give them what's called a common formative assessment. And like I said, a common formative is the exact same way. It's basically a test before a test. Think about it how your summative assessment is like your driver's test. Your common formative, that's your in-car. It's where you go and you really get that, you know, like this is what's going to be on the test. This is what you have to know. This is, for some of you, this might be your oh crap moment. I have a lot of studying I need to do. But it also gives us a lot of really good data to determine where our kids need to go before they actually take that real test, which is our common summative assessment, which are our end-of-unit comprehensive overviews of student learning and student progress. Again, a big thing that we've looked at so far this year is being a lot more intentional to match the rigor of both what's on the standards and what's on the end-of-course exams. Because again, one thing that, you know, as teachers, if we provide so much autonomy as far as what's on the test, well, we want our kids to do well on the test. And the problem is that sometimes if we don't match the rigor that we see on the test at the end in our end-of-course exams, our kids might assess very well within the classroom because it's not as rigorous as what the end-of-course exam provides. So it's almost that false sense of hope that our kids have. And they go to take the end-of-course exam, and it's like, I don't know what I'm doing. I haven't seen anything that's like this rigorous. So we are really working to match the rigor of what our kids see on the daily so that when test time comes and it rolls around, like there's no surprise. So, and we're doing that not only for end-of-course exams, we're doing that for better SAT preparation, we're doing that for better ACT preparation. We want to make sure that our kids, no matter what their goal is, that they have the best opportunity to do this, and that's by exposing them to the rigor that they need to see in order to be successful at the next level. So what we then do is then we take the common summative results and then we provide intervention and remediation. So two examples of this. So this is one example. So this is a government example. So obviously we have blocked out the names of students and teachers, but here's your student column and here's your teacher column. And then up here are all the standards that have been assessed to this point. So there are two ways that we can kind of go about it. The first way we go about it is we go about it horizontally. And so when we go about it horizontally, what that allows us to do is that allows us to see what individual students are struggling with and we can work to remediate them. The other way that we can go is we can go vertically. So for example, on this standard, government standard 8, like our kids are knocking this thing out of the park as of right now. That's not something we need to go back and reteach. However, if we look at something like, you know, standard 5, where we have a lot of kids in yellow, a couple kids in red, that's a standard that in our PLC meeting, we will then go back and discuss, and we'll say, how do we need to go back and reteach the standard? Because clearly our kids aren't doing it. Clearly there's something that we have missed between that connection between teaching and then the learning. So let's go back and let's look at doing it a different way. This right here is an example that we have from algebra. This is from our Edulastic assessment platform. So this right here is a breakdown. So the kids all took this is their Unit 3 Quiz 1. So this is a mini summative assessment. So it gives you the breakdown as far as by standard how our kids are achieving. So again, we look at this one. A, C, E, D, A4, that's a standard we need to go back at and look at because our kids are obviously struggling on that. That's when we then can go back, look at the BI report that Ms. Abraham referenced in her report, however our kids how did they do on that last year, how they done on it the last couple years forward, is that something that we need to go back and look at. This right here, this is a breakdown of each question by teacher, and what's great about this is that we can kind of go in and we can say, okay, well, on this question, this teacher knocked it out of the park. Hey, tell me how you taught this lesson. How did you teach this so I can then go back in my class and possibly reteach it the same way? If you look at it, it's not one like where one teacher is consistently, knocking out of the park where the others are struggling. Sometimes it's just a matter of like, I might teach lesson A better, and Mr. Dahlbaum might teach lesson B better, Ms. Taylor might teach lesson C better, and that's where we can have those conversations in our PLC meetings to determine like what is best practice, how can we help our students moving forward. So we have all this data, now what the heck do we do with it? Because it's easy to get the data, as Mr. Isle says, like too many times we're data rich and we're information poor. So we have kind of 3 tiers that we look at as far as implementing interventions and support strategies within our group, within our building. So the first one are creating focused small groups to address specific skill gaps. So we do that in reading labs, math labs, and what we call ARC, which is an academic resource center. These are all at least semester or year-long courses that kids are assigned to for 1 period per day. Reading labs and math labs, they're giving intense intervention. They are seeing either a teacher or an intervention specialist during that time. ARC is more for students who struggle maybe with like executive functioning, with organization, maybe they struggle across the board. So it's a way for one of our tutors in our building to really hone in on them, have them focus on what they're doing. Because a lot of times when we have kids who struggle, it's not necessarily because they struggle with the skill perhaps, but they struggle just across the board with like doing homework, getting their work done, so on and so forth, where if they can kind of like do all those things, they will be more successful. So it's a way for us to really hone in on that. Second thing is home base. So 4 days a week, we have what's called an intervention period where students have a 30-minute block for where teachers can pull them based on common formative or common summative results in order to provide extra support. So what we did this year that was new, and this has been a blessing for us, is we have freed up our 9th and 10th grade English and math teachers. So at least one teacher in English 9, English 10, Algebra 1, and Geometry, so they can provide support to the students during this time. So why those groups in particular? 2 reasons. The first reason is, by and large, we see that the majority of our students who struggle, they're 9th and 10th graders. The second reason for this is because if you look at the data shows that a huge reason for a huge correlation between students dropping out is how do they perform on Algebra 1 and English 9. If they fail Algebra 1 or they fail English 9, they are much more likely to drop out of school than if they pass those classes. So we want to provide as much remediation, as much intervention as possible to those students to make sure that our kids are on track as they continue moving forward. And then lastly are Wednesday labs, which with our early release time on Wednesdays, we essentially free up at least 75% of our teaching staff during that time to provide feedback for students so they can receive targeted intervention. A lot of times it's for small group or one-on-one tutoring, which is a huge blessing. You'll see a lot of students who struggle with with subjects in other school districts, and they're going and they're paying $50, $60, $70 an hour for tutors. Like, we provide that for a lot of our students for free 1 day a week, which has been just a really positive thing for a lot of our kids. And it's available for any student. So it's mandatory for our freshmen and sophomores, but our juniors and seniors are also able to take advantage of it if they want to go see the teacher during that time. So how are we doing this? Again, our Wednesday schedule, we have professional learning communities. We do that weekly. All tested subject areas meet weekly with the whole team, including their intervention specialists, and then we have an assigned administrator. So either Mr. Bishop or myself, we're in every single PLC meeting every single week so we can know what's going on. There are a lot of times where, if we as administrators just tell them like, hey, go do this, go do that, and then we're not in the room, like, our teachers want to see us in the trenches with them. Like, they want to know that we are here, we're analyzing the data, we're supporting them, so we make it a priority to make sure that we are in those meetings every week with them as much as possible. Obviously, some things come up, but we do our best to make sure that we are in every meeting the best we can. Pull-out days to analyze standards and assessments. So what we do periodically is we will try to have pull-out days for our teachers so they can take an entire day to go through assessment design, look at assessments, make sure that our assessments match the rigor of EOCs and align to standards. Again, taking our teachers out of the classroom, like, we don't love to do it, but it is extremely beneficial for them to, like, be able to have that time together, to take an entire day to solely devote to that time. Because you think about it, our teachers at the high school, they teach 6 periods a day. They get 1 45-minute prep period. That's for grading, that's getting copies, that's lesson planning, that's communicating to parents. Like, there's a lot that they have to do during that time. So they really enjoy having those pull-out days so they can really just focus in on what needs to be, discussed. And then the last one is ESC support. So the BI report that you saw, Ms. Abraham's report, looking at the trends, looking at historical data, looking at item release questions. Those are all things that we do during our PLC meetings. And then we've also brought in some consultants with the help of Mr. Isle to help us with both the PLC and the assessment process, and that's been a huge benefit to us as well. So that's what's going on at the high school. Like I said, our team has done a phenomenal job this year. They always do. I am blessed to have the staff that we do at the high school. I really think that we're taking it to the next level, and they're just doing a fantastic job. That's our teachers, Mr. Bishop, all of our support staff. They're rock stars. So that's it for the high school.
Awesome, thank you.
So questions for the high school?
I had some, but he answered them as he went along. So I was going to ask you how the teachers feel about being able to talk to each other and saying, I'm down here. Like, this class isn't getting this, but your class is getting this. So I like that they can compare that, because even year to year, it's nice, to have that. I can look back and say, okay, last year I was struggling teaching this, but this class gets it this year, but they don't get this section. So I like that they can do that and work together.
Yeah, and that can go one of two ways. They can look at it as like they're being attacked because like they're not getting it, and why are you not doing that? Or like, again, we try to make it like the data is just the data, and it's nothing more than that. It's just information that we can utilize.
Yeah.
And again, as far as looking at the year to year, that's going to be a huge benefit to us. I think as we as we really start to dig into the EduClimber program, and we can really truly look at our assessments and look at our data on a much more like longitudinal basis, I think it's going to be another game breaker for us. But this is they do a great job, and sometimes the conversations are tough, but again, we have a great staff, so they're willing to have those conversations.
Tough conversations though drive growth, so
Yeah, absolutely.
that's awesome.
Well, and there's a lot of variables too in how kids learn. Each class doesn't look the same.
Right.
No.
So it's, what worked last year may not work this year. And I appreciate the collaboration that all the buildings really are doing currently.
Yep.
Cool, thank
Cool.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brett. And just board, I wanted to note that Mr. Bishop is covering an away game tonight, and Mrs. Wolf from the elementary is hosting our preschool parents tonight. They have a preschool gathering tonight at the elementary, so that's why the two of them are here. But
Nice.
I would like to give a shout out to all of our administrators, really everyone, but I wanted to call out the administrative team tonight because I really challenged them in August, and I kind of tipped my hand to them at our July board meeting, and some of them were listening, and they were like, what? When I said to you guys in July that I was going to challenge them to really focus, and we were going to restructure our team meetings and our administrative meetings. And to their credit, they came to our August retreat that we have up at the ESC, a 2-day August retreat. They came to us and they had already met and begun making plans for the school year to meet the challenge that I was going to put before them. And I didn't even realize that they had done that. And these ladies and gentlemen have really taken it personal, I guess I would say, to challenge themselves and challenge their teams to be really more focused on what we're doing this year. And we all believe that it's going to make a difference in our test scores. So,
Absolutely.
And each one of them are focusing on different things. A lot of the concepts are the same, but they're really drilling down into the areas that each building or each grade level really needs to focus on. So hats off to the admin team because they don't get a lot of credit all the time. So I wanted to personally thank all of them.
Very true. No, and I appreciate that. I think, continuing to have the conversation of being able to show growth and, what that looks like periodically here at board meetings is going to be super important.
And we plan to do that. And then board, I don't know if you remember, Mrs. Campbell and Mrs. Bedford had asked that we give an update on the new program that we purchased to help us look at data warehousing. We're going to do that in January. We may bump that to February. When we purchased the program, Mr. Johansson warned myself and Mrs. Devers that when you purchase a program of this magnitude that's going to pull in so many different data pieces, to be ready that sometimes it takes a long time to get everything lined up and working correctly. Once you get that to happen, then it's smoother sailing. Well, wouldn't you know, he was correct. So we've been struggling with getting all those pieces to be plugged in. It's not anyone's fault. It's just a huge data warehousing program. Then you have to try and get all the pieces to work together so that you know if you're looking at Tracy's data from one class and then you look at her data in the other class, it's truly Tracy that you're looking at both places. And that takes a lot of data that goes in. So we plan to give you an update in January. But just fair warning, if we don't feel like there's a good update to give, then I'm not going to waste your time on that, and we'll bump it to February. So be prepared for that. But I did want you to know that we are on target. We're behind where we wanted to be, but we're on target of getting this product launched, and it's going to be a real help.
Do we have an idea of when it will be functioning?
My goal, or our goal, we're hoping that the start of the second semester that we're going to be able to start using it the way we wanted to use it. So that would be probably right around January.
Okay.
Okay, and then one final piece. This is the end of an era in Streetsboro, and I don't mean to be I don't mean to be cliche or funny, but tonight marks a very important night in the history of the Streetsboro City Schools, and that is the fact that two gentlemen sitting up here on the stage, who neither one of them like to be called out, but they're going to be uncomfortable, and that's okay. These two gentlemen, and that would be Mr. Grimm and Mr. Violi, have collectively been on the board, when you add their service time up, about 34 years together. And the two of them have, they chose, for various reasons, they chose to end their seats on the Board of Education during this last election, so tonight serves as their last meetings. So I wanted to recognize both of them for some different things. Together, both of them have been a tremendous force as long as I've been here, and then I've heard, they're both urban legends in their own time, but I've heard legendary comments about both of them. I'm trying to be funny, Mr. Violi. He rolled his eyes.
Look at him.
If you didn't catch that, he rolled his eyes at me.
He's like wiggling around.
But these two gentlemen, seriously though, have dedicated a very, very, very large portion of their lives to this community and to the students of Streetsboro. A lot of people don't know what a board member does. And they think that they come once a month and they ask questions and they look at the reports and they sit up straight and they look all important. And yes, they do that, but there is an absolute ton of things that goes on behind the scenes. And I would argue that within the last 12 to probably 14 years with the advent of social media, their work has become exponentially more difficult, because they're always connected to their community members. And they're always being asked questions that they don't know and they don't have the answer to, and they're constantly telling their constituents, I'll get you the answer. We'll find out. No, that's a rumor. No, this is what's going on. No, that's not correct. And it's not just a one night a month job. It's actually a 24/7 job. And I will tell you that I've personally heard from every board member on this stage at nights, on weekends, in the mornings, on holidays, they're never off the clock. So Brian and Kevin have done this for a lot of years. And so I actually applaud them for hanging on this long. So let me start with Mr. Violi. Mr. Violi, I think I counted, you did 13 years. This is 13 years going into your 14th? Yeah, something like that. See,
Who's counting?
It's PTSD at this point, right? And so, some of the things that people don't know about Brian is, Brian is I'm going to call him a corporate manager, and he manages a very large store chain, and he's in charge of a lot of people, a lot of inventory, big businesses. I'm purposely not using the names, so I'm not sure if I should. But But, one of the things that Brian has done, this particular train has really grown through the years, and he's been a part of building a large store from the ground up. And so when we embarked on our building project back in 2013, and we passed the bond issue, and we broke ground around 2015, Brian served on the core team with myself, and I was the owner's agent, and Brian was the owner's agent's partner, assistant, and Brian was at just about every trailer meeting we had, core team meeting we had. Brian was in the dirt and the mud and out in the trenches looking at things as they went up, and he knew the questions that I didn't know to ask, and he'd say, hey, Mike, you need to ask this, Mike, you need to ask that. And he really, along with me, the two of us really took that building project personally. And I'm not saying that the rest of the board didn't, but we were really down in the trenches. And that was something that he was very proud of, and it was very important to him. And then most recently, and I say this with a little jest, but and kind of fun, but this proves how tenacious he is. We've all heard about the sign for the last, 2.5 years, the digital sign, and the Brian Violi honorable digital sign. And that actually, even though it's not out there, Brian, as you know, the process is finally complete, and I know Mr. Scarsapino and his team have been working hard, and they're going to be putting that new sign up here pretty soon. But what you don't know is all the behind-the-scenes work that Brian did, the phone calls he made, and the push. And Brian also did a lot of that when it came to CRAs and all of our tax incentives and all those things to make sure that the school system was getting the money that they deserved as Streetsboro grew. So Brian, I would like to personally thank you for your time on the Board of Education, and to thank you for your years of service. It's not much, but we put together a nice plaque with your years of service as a congratulations. So can we all please give Brian Violi a round of applause?
No, I'm not a big speech person, but, this is it's a bittersweet end of a segment of my life, and I have enjoyed working with everybody, all the board members, all the administrators, everybody on this stage, everybody that's out there, the bus drivers, the custodians. I'm going to still be around. I'm going to try and get to as much as I can, but it'd be at a different level. And I appreciate the recognition, Mike, but it's not necessary. I mean, you do it because you love to do it, and you do it for the kids in the district, and that's really the most advice I can give anybody on any board, is that make sure that you're doing the right thing for the kids. And that's been the first thought in my mind throughout all the years. So I appreciate it. This will look nice in my office for the next couple of years till I retire from there, which is hopefully soon, but we'll see what happens there. Get to spend some time with my grandchildren as well. So
thank you, Brian. Kevin, it's your turn. So now we get to see you uncomfortable for a minute or two.
Okay,
so
moving on.
I was going to say, he likes it almost as much as Brian does.
So, Kevin, I calculated this 20 years. So it's going into your, I think, 20, like the ending your 21st year, right?
At the end of the month, it'll be 20 years.
Yep,
Yeah.
20 years. Okay, I was right, 2021. So Kevin has, I don't know this for sure, but I believe Kevin has been one of the longest standing board members in the school district's history. I don't know that for sure, but 20 years is a very long time to serve on a Board of Education. What a lot of you also know is that Kevin Grimm is also Captain Grimm with our Streetsboro Fire Department. And one of the things that Kevin has held near and dear to his heart as long as I've been here, and I know for a fact long before I was here, was helping our school district be one of the safest school districts from not only the fire side of things, but also the safety side of things. And in more recent years, and sadly, we all know of all the increased violence that's occurred in our public schools over the last 10 years. And so back in 2014, 15, myself and a couple of people approached Mr. Grimm and the Board of Education to talk about, let's take our safety program to the next level. And all 5 board members were very in favor of that. But Kevin took a special interest in that, and I'm sure it's because of his life choice of being someone that's in fire safety and general public safety. And Kevin was instrumental in helping us to design our comprehensive safety program from 2015 into what it's morphed into today, which I would argue, and we actually have some data to show that we are one of the top safety programs in the state of Ohio, and we've been recognized as one of the most prepared school districts in the state of Ohio, and that's been due in a large part to Mr. Grimm. Mr. Grimm has served on lots of private meetings. Mr. Grimm has trained with us in the trenches. That includes, as most people know, that we have an armed response team in this district that has trained more so than people that are in law enforcement at times. Now, not all law enforcement, obviously. We've trained alongside law enforcement. And Kevin was one of those people that says, if I'm going to hang my hat on this, then I'm going to do it with them. And he actually trained with us in the trenches as we went through these different training programs and modules, and then did our ongoing training. Also, Kevin was instrumental in adding, we used to call them, there are safety buckets now, I'll just call it that. But he was instrumental in bringing a program called Stop the Bleed into our district, where every and single employee in the district was taught basic first aid and basically on how to stop bleeding, because we all know that in a situation where there is blood involved, stopping a critical bleed is critical to one's life. And so that program was 100% Mr. Grimm, and he even went knocking on Berry Plastic's door and had all the buckets donated for free to the district. And he, along with some other key people, had those buckets filled with all the supplies needed, that if we have to force a classroom into a lockdown situation, they have anything from glucose to a shower curtain and toilet paper, and use that bucket as facilities, first aid, tourniquets, so forth and so on. And Kevin has been also on me from the standpoint of keeping me on my toes, making sure that we're staying current with what we're doing. Are we training? Are we staying up on our train? Hey, Mike, I've heard of this new thing. And then all of this culminated on October 27th when we had, it was called an Asher event, but basically our Portage County Emergency Management, we had a very comprehensive safety exercise here in Streetsboro. One that's not really been done like to that extent around the state of Ohio, where we not only tested the internal systems within the Streetsboro City School District from initial notification when the event occurs, and in this case it was an active shooter event, and a gentleman walked into the Streetsboro Middle School on a PD day. No students were involved, but we had staff members posing as students in classrooms, and we had our secretaries and our principals there, and this off-duty police officer started firing blank rounds. So it was to simulate an active shooter event, testing our calls to 911, how quick did we lock down, how quick did the police department respond, how quickly did the police department enter the building and eliminate the threat, what happened with our safety forces as they arrived on scene, did they establish incident command, did the school district go to incident command, did police go to incident command, did fire go to incident command, did we arrange for bus transportation out, did we put our other buildings in lockdown, and it just goes on and on and on. And Kevin was an instrumental part in putting that entire exercise together. And like I said, it even tested our hospital systems to a point where they sent casualties to our hospital systems in the area, and even surprised our hospital systems with walk-in casualties that they weren't expecting, to see how they would respond. All that was put together in partnership with Mr. Grimm, Ryan Shackelford. And my point is, this has been something that's been very important to Kevin, and he has really kept his foot to the gas pedal on this for years. And I wanted the public to know that how important that was to him, but more importantly, how much he's been dedicating his life to the safety of our students and our staff. And then also we know that Kevin's passion with music and our music programs, and as long as I've known Kevin, he's been the band and music liaison, and he loves music. He loves the performing arts. He's at everything he can get to with the performing arts, and he has always been there to make sure that our kids have the best opportunities and experiences as far as music goes in Streetsboro City Schools. And again, you don't usually see that much of a dedication from somebody consistently. So Kevin, I would like to thank you for your 20 years of service and present you with this plaque. Everyone, can we give Kevin Grimm a round of applause?
How about if I just say ditto what Brian said? I appreciate everything, Mike. You know, everything that I've been involved in is really a partnership with everybody. So this board, I think the board and the administration is the best it's been in my 20 years. And I'm just going to finish by, because my allergies are acting up, is that what Tracy and Tanya and Kristen have their leadership, and I'm excited to see what they do next year and the years forward with the other two ladies coming in here. So thank you.
Thank you.
Am I allowed to say something?
Absolutely. Board.
Okay. So my first interaction with the board was 20 years ago when my daughter entered Waite Primary as a kindergartner, and I had the pleasure of meeting very briefly Kevin at a board meeting. And later, when Brian joined, running the district PTA for 8 years, we had multiple conversations over the years, some of them good conversations, some of them bad conversations. But being on the board now for wrapping up my 4th year and having the opportunity to serve with both of you, this is not an easy job for anyone. Being an administrator, being a teacher, being honestly an employee of a school district is a difficult job. And the amount of grace that you have shown me and the amount that I've learned from both of you and the respect, I think, between all of us is outstanding. And I just want you to know how much I appreciate both of you. And my allergies are also acting up.
I was thinking about this. Obviously, I think we all have,
Yeah.
right? I'm so glad I came onto this board at a time where I could learn from the two of you, from our schools being built, that our children can be in these beautiful buildings that I know your kids didn't get the opportunity to be in, but thank you for that. I would say thank you so much for being involved from a safety perspective. I wish we could tell our community everything that we know behind closed doors, and I know we can't, but I can go to sleep every night knowing that our kids are safe, that my kids are safe, and that takes so much pressure off of all of us. So thank you for that. I'm not quite sure who else I'm going to play rock, paper, scissors with, but you are my favorite person on the board to play that with.
At least I won't lose anymore. You're so good at it.
And I'm also not sure who's going to read the Maplewood menu like you do, because,
I'll keep you informed.
yeah, it makes us hungry every time we're up here.
Yeah.
But thank you so much for teaching me, and I am glad that you both are still going to be involved in our district. So thank you.
Yes, thank you both for your dedication over the years. It's a testament that, you know, you spent all this time and energy on our kids and our community, and it's amazing. And we have some very big shoes to fill without the two of you here. And personally, I feel so comfortable asking you guys, being the newbie on board, any questions. I know that you'll answer honestly, and we'll still be asking questions in the future, so.
The phone still works, so. You guys have a big challenge going forward, because I think it gets more difficult every year.
Yeah.
So I appreciate all three of you too doing what you do, and continue to do the good work. And if you need help, or if you have questions, please call Kevin. No, you can call me anytime.
Well, and you're not wrong. I mean, the focus is the kids, and as long as we continue to focus on what's best for them, it's, you know, Mr. Scarsapino says it all the time. We do it for the kids. Hard days, easy days, you know, you're here for the kids.
And honestly, that's what this board and this administration focuses on, is,
Yep.
is the kids.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you. That concludes my report.
Thank you.
Okay,
Oh, you got to follow that.
moving on. Treasurer's report.
First, I just want to say thank you to both of you. You know, I've only been here a short time. In my short time, getting to know you both, and how important it is to be, you know, involved in your community. You guys have been a part of this community for a very long time, so thank you. Really quickly for my treasurer report, I don't actually have a presentation this month. The only thing I really want to say is that for our general fund, expenses are up about 200,000 compared to last year. That's once again because of the new contracts in place. And revenue is very similar to last year, so we're still on the same trend as we typically are. And we should see tax revenue coming in late January or February, where we can start seeing a higher cash balance again.
Okay,
That's it.
thank you. Moving on to Mr. Scarsapino, Chief Business Officer's report.
Thank you. I have a few items to report this evening.
It's morning, we got problems.
How my week is gone.
Understood.
Yeah. So the first one is good news. You'll see on the agenda a certificate of savings that was presented to us at OSBA conference, which Mrs. Bedford accepted and then told the OSC that I paid them to say nice things about myself and Andreas. So that was always fun. But you can see that savings there just by purchasing strategically and doing business with some of these entities. There's $225,876.08 in savings, and that doesn't even encompass everything because I don't send everything to them when we do something through Gardner, through their purchasing, because we also will utilize that as a method, but we will do some negotiating on the price even further from there. But this is just one avenue of savings that we do in operations. There's a lot other, but the big ones on there are the electricity consortium that we joined a few years back when I was in the treasurer's seat. We joined that, and it's been good to us. And then the natural gas one is also one of the bigger ones on there. So just wanted to share that with everybody this evening to start off our report. This evening, we'll be asking in operations for several approvals. The first one will be a bus purchase, which you had approved prior. This is just finalizing that. This will be a bus with a lift. It'll be right around $130,000. We'll be utilizing Rush, so we'll be asking for that. Another is a generator purchase for the board office. Most of our key components are housed at the board office. And so when the power goes out, it triggers a lot of resetting, and then it triggers district-wide. So we're hoping that by installing a generator and connecting some key components there, that we won't have damage to equipment, we won't have constant full resets, because if you live in Streetsboro, you know sometimes the wind blows a certain way and the power goes down. It seemed like last year we had the power go down like once a week at certain points. So it would be nice if we could have that at least to help power some of the key components there at the board office. So that is on there. The safety grant, which we were awarded last year or this year, earlier on, we have quite a few significant purchases there that we'll be asking all under one umbrella, because I don't want to have 700 standalone recommendations and then get ridiculed.
I appreciate that.
On stage by the Board of Education. So I talked to Brian, and we agreed that we could do it this way. But I'll just tell you some of them. So the purchases that we've made to date with the safety grant, we have purchased the entire new phone system that has been rolled out, which was a gigantic savings to the school district. And the Zoom phone system is a great thing. The cameras at every building, Verkatas, upgrades on those cameras, adding additional cameras. We're going to be asking for approval for the strobe systems and speakers. So what that is we're going to be purchasing a product that connects into the Bogan Commander, which is our PA announcement systems, that will be able to be powered through our Zoom app. So that principals that have the app on their phone can activate their PA anytime, anywhere, and there also will be pre-recorded messages if we have to go into a lockdown, so that they can just hit that and then it'll go throughout the building. That in turn will activate a strobe, a certain color of a strobe, if it's fire, if it's lockdown, if it's active shooter, those types of things. So it gives us that ability, because right now in the Bogan Commander, there's one and it's at the front desk, and what if you can't get to there?
Right.
Right? So Andreas did a ton of research on that to figure out like what is going to be the best thing to connect into that system, because to replace the whole system is a huge expense, and we wouldn't have been able to do everything that we're trying to do with that safety grant fund. We're trying to work smart with the dollars that we have. So we'll be asking for approval for that. Also, you see VASU communications on there. Those are the Marks radios. So some additional hardware, batteries, radios, but then also we're going to put a station in every front office of every building with an antenna on the front, because some of our buildings are spotty in terms of getting reception in them. Now, when you're on the talk around channel, it seems to be fine. So each building has their own talk around, but if you're on channel 1 trying to broadcast to the channel that Mike, myself, and Andreas are on at all times, it could be hard sometimes to communicate. So the front office staff will still have their portable radio, which will be on the talk around channel, but then the actual unit, which will look like a lot like the bus radios, right? Like it's a big unit that has an antenna on the top of the building, will be on channel 1 at all times, so that they can monitor channel 1. If they need to call out to channel 1, they'll have perfect reception. That antenna is not going to boost the signal on their radios to come out. It'll just be strictly for that radio dedicated to the front office on channel 1. So we're asking for that this evening as well. And then access controls, so swiped card access to certain doors that don't have it on it, and repairs to certain doors that need to be repaired, all fit within the parameters of that safety grant. And then a fire panel for DEFR, which we worked with Mr. Grimm, Andreas specifically, to make sure that that panel would be proper for that. And then there's going to be additional funds left, right around $27,000. With those funds, we plan on implementing an AED program here at the schools. There are AEDs, but it's not on a specific program. So we're going to upgrade all the AEDs and then get it on a yearly program through Cintas, using consortium purchasing for that. However, we're still discussing the pricing on that. So that should be an item that should happen sooner rather than later. And then we're looking at products right now to solve an issue that we know we have at SCS, where there are not outdoor speakers out there. So every other building has speakers. When you get to the PA system, it talks outside. For some reason, SCS does not. So we would like to solve that, so that if there is an emergency and they activate something, that could be heard if people are on the playground. And that will take care of the grant. And if there's anything left, we'll probably be purchasing a few more cameras to have for when things go wrong. And then, sorry, I gotta get back to the agenda here. And then the last one is additional services through GPD. So if you remember, when we did the DEFR project, we also ran a scope with them to redo central services. The building where Jeff, our mechanic, works, and Joe and Jason, our grounds crew, are housed in. That building's deteriorating, the siding, some of the steel beams, the heating system's old, the electrical's an issue. So we approved that already, but we knew it was going to be a phased project because we had to do the DEFR parking lot first. So after talking with Jeff and then doing just some things that have been on our mind in terms of research, Jeff asked about an overhead door that could go directly out. So there's one all the way through, like a pull through. So we needed to get some additional design services through them for that. And then our goal is to redo the parking lot over there. Now, in talking with them, we're going to try to keep the cement. Originally we weren't, but now we're going to try to keep the cement that the buses actually park on, because it's still in pretty good shape, and just repair some of the cement block that's damaged, but then redo with heavy duty asphalt all around the tar, because there are a lot of potholes there that are, if you go back there, it's filled with gravel right now because they're large and vast. It's not a great parking lot, but we want to do the same exact thing we did with DEFR, the geotechnical studies, everything to make sure that the sub bases are good for longevity of that lot, and that would then go into the front parking area of that building as well. I let GPD know where our budget's at. I talked to Brian about where the budget's at, and Brian Haynes, and then him and I kind of projected out together. I kind of showed him what we were thinking and where we were at, and we will still have money left in PI at the end of the day. with these projects. Here's the thing about these projects. We're going to go out to bid for them. If the bids come in too high and don't fit our budget, we don't have to do them. We still have the services through GPD, and when we're ready to do it, we might have to maybe save, then we will. But I don't believe we're going to be able, I don't believe that we're going to have that problem. We saved right around, I just got the final invoice the other day, we're going to save $200,000 on the Henry Deffer pavement project, just with due diligence and the work that we did on that project, being on site, working with GPD, and having that extra set of eyes. So that's going to go right back into the PI fund immediately as soon as we close that encumbrance. So we've done the homework. Those are our recommendations in terms of this evening and what we'd like to do and get those projects rolling so we could have them done over the summer and have them up before school. That's the goal.
Does that get you a lift or what you were looking for?
So no.
Transportation?
No, it does not. That is not inclusive. Now that is something we could potentially add on later on, and that could be a project near, but when I talked to Jeff about certain things, like the doors seem to be the more important of those, and the expense on the lift.
That doesn't have that building doesn't have like a trough in there where they can walk underneath it?
No, no, it's jacked up all the time. Yeah. But that is not something that is not on our radar, Mr. Violi, in terms of improvements at some point in time.
I know that he's asked for a lift in there.
Yep.
So
yep.
It'd be interesting to see what that would cost.
Sure. Are there any other questions in regards to any of the items that we're bringing forward this evening?
No, just thank you for all the work and identifying what we can purchase with the grants and then doing your due diligence for the cost savings.
Yeah, and Andreas is a really big part of that as well, so I want to give credit where credit's due.
Absolutely.
Everybody knows he's the guy when it comes to the safety stuff, and then we work some magic together to make all the pieces and parts fit. And then I'd like to conclude, I thanked them last time. Mr. Grimm wasn't here, but I do want to thank you both for your service. You guys have been fantastic to me and my family in terms of board, and you've made me feel at home here at Streetsboro City Schools for a long time. And so I want to thank you for that, because I feel like I found a home here.
Good, thank you.
Guys here, so I appreciate that. And then the last thing that I would like to point out, even though it hasn't been voted on, Mike's really good at pointing everything else out for everybody else, but there is a consent agenda item this evening for somebody. I thought it said like somebody's going to retire, but I don't know. I gotta relook at that. But Mike Dalbaugh has announced his retirement effective 12/31/24 if the board accepts. But I want to say it before it happens. You've done a lot here. We've done a lot together. You're like a brother, and I think you know that. And I appreciate the guidance you've given me as a young administrator when I came in, and I appreciate everything that you've done and your willingness to take a risk when I first walked in your door. So that doesn't go unnoticed. And I look to still create lots of laughter and memories with you while you're still here. So, yep. So thank you, Mr. Dalbaugh, for everything. And from the community as well, because there's buildings built, this place is in a much better place than it was when you started, and you're leaving it in a much better place. So I want to thank you for that.
If I can just add to the feel-good moment.
You guys are killing me tonight.
Well, I want to give a shout out again to Operation one last time, because all the safety stuff that is near and dear to me is, they're making it happen. They're improving from the phone system where certain people can monitor emergency calls and get there and start helping before help even is dispatched. And even the radio system that he talked about, the school district didn't have to, but they agreed to go to the statewide Marks radio system that is what we're on with police and fire and even our service department. We're on a statewide Marks system, and having the buildings, having the ability for the police and fire departments to connect immediately with the school buildings, and they don't even have to do anything. We can just change a few buttons and boom, we're talking to them. And it can be some routine stuff. A road is closed, or get information for them while we're on our way here. It's just huge. So what Mr. Dalbaugh had said earlier about this school district being at the forefront of school safety, it is a partnership, and what operations is doing to make things better and at the same time save taxpayer dollars is huge.
Thank you, Mr. Grimm.
Thank you for that.
Thank you. We always get a little nervous when we hear the voice of Mr. Grimm shout over the radio. Streetsboro Fire Operations, I'm like, oh no. Andreas and I will just look at each other and be like, uh-oh, what is happening? So, but yes, thank you. We
I'll
try.
just say hi once in a while just to keep you up.
We hope so. We hope you come by and see us too.
Absolutely.
That's awesome.
That concludes my report this evening.
So I'm going to add one thing to your report. I don't know if everyone was able to see it in the agenda, but Matt was dressed as a turkey.
Yes.
Love it. Love it. It's literally the first thing I open. When I open the agenda, I go right to where's the monthly nutrition group report. So thank you again, Matt, for keeping it fun.
And there's a video out there for Thanksgiving on the Rocket Report if you're interested and have a little bit of time.
Well, and I'm going to say one last feel-good thing. I don't know if it's Thanksgiving or the holidays or whatever, but, we as a district, Mike, I know your retirement has been announced, and I'm saving my comments until next year because I can only handle so much. But we have, from working behind the scenes as a board member with the two of you, with the administrative team, knowing the staff, knowing the struggles, seeing the wins, we have so much to be thankful for. Every district has issues, but we have so much here to be thankful for. And I just can't say that enough. Okay, moving on. I could go on forever. Board reports. Mrs. Bedford.
All right, so we are thick into winter sports season, and then we're off to a great start. The girls' basketball team is now 3-0, and the boys' team is 2-1. And the wrestling team will host Woodridge, Norton, and Field, I guess, tonight. So good luck to them. We had 4 athletes that are either first, second, or third team in the All-Ohio. So junior Madeline Genovese was selected second team All-Ohio in soccer. Senior Preston Hopperton was selected first team All-Ohio in football. Junior Jackson Gula was selected second team All-Ohio in football as well. And then last but not least, we have a sophomore, Arthur Scott, was selected third team All-Ohio in football. So congrats to those student athletes. And I believe, yep, that concludes my report.
Okay. I'm going to go next just because I'm quick and easy. Educational Foundation, I do not have a report. PTA, no report there as well. Mrs. Eppel.
Well, I received the third graders' test scores from Mr. Isle. They took the Ohio State reading test. And to piggyback along with what Mrs. Abraham said earlier, we do have a ways to go with these test scores. They're broken up into 5 levels: limited, basic, proficient, accomplished, and advanced. Right now, we had 32% of the kids were limited, 30% were basic, 21 were proficient, 12 were accomplished, and 5 were advanced. And comparing last year to this year, we have 18 less kids in the third grade. We did have 18 less kids that were in the limited and the basic, but we also had an increase of 5 kids that went up to accomplished. So the target proficiency score for the state is 700, and ours is at a 688 right now. So with all the work that they're doing with studying the PLC, having those meetings and everything, and continuing with CKLA and growing the momentum with that, we're anticipating the scores to increase as we go along.
Excellent. Okay. Mr. Grimm.
Thank you. Streetsboro City Council will meet tomorrow night at 6 p.m. for their annual appointment of department heads and directors. No other action is expected. They will have regular council meetings on Monday. Those agendas were forwarded to you earlier this afternoon. The City of Streetsboro is still advertising for a part-time school resource officer for the school district. The hiring of a part-time school resource officer is the city's responsibility in fulfilling their part of an agreement with the school district. That agreement, the district's been providing space for Parks and Recreation and the Senior Center They got booted out of their old place, and the new place in the park isn't ready yet. So the school district is housing them over at the annex. In return, the school is to receive a part-time school resource officer. Any interested person with current OPATA certification is encouraged to apply. SRO certification is preferred, of course. You can visit the city's website and click on Human Resources for more information and an application. It would be great to get that filled ASAP. And band performances have wrapped up for now. You can come see the Streetsboro High School Band and 8th grade band members perform a pregame show for the Cleveland Cavaliers as they take on the Washington Wizards at a basketball game Friday, January 5th. Tip-off is at 7:30 p.m. That's all I have.
Excellent. Mr. Violi.
I'm going to just reflect a little bit on something that Mike had talked about, and then something that my brother sent to me today on the phone.
Are you going to make us sad?
What's that?
Are you going to make me sad?
I don't know.
Or hungry?
First off, my
That's a
brother
great
said,
response.
"We're getting old, and where is all the time gone?"
Yeah.
And I started thinking about that, and it's like, wow, a lot of stuff has happened, and it's gone. But, you know, then my brother sent me a picture of when I was 21, 22 years old, wearing a pair of check pants like John Daly's golf pants, you know. And before they were even popular, I had these on. I'll show it to you after the meeting. But I was thinking about that.
I want a
and,
copy.
It's a good picture.
and I just thought about Mike coming into the district, when you came into the district as in campus. Well, a lot of stuff has gone past, you know. A lot of time, a lot of good things happened too. There's one thing that you mentioned that everyone kids around about, you know, during the time that last couple of years on the board, is the sign in the front of the building. And that's kind of the last item that needs to be completed in my mind for that building project. And until that's done, I think I can't put it to bed, you know. So I appreciate you bringing that up, and I know that it's happening. I appreciate all the work that we've done to get that done, but that's one of the reasons I joined this board, to help get us facilities. And that is the last thing that I have, I think, on my agenda to complete or check off to say, I'm done now, you know. But Mike, I appreciate all the years that you've spent here and the time that you put in, and we are in a better place today than we were when all of us joined this board. So I want to just say congratulations and thank you to everybody here and on the stage and in the audience. So we appreciate everything that everyone's done. So thanks.
You're cutting the ribbon on that sign.
That's right.
I just want to sign up.
Goes back to, there's a lot to be thankful for.
That's
Okay,
all I have to report.
thank you. Carrying on to consent agenda items. It is recommended the Board of Education approve the consent agenda items B through K.
I'll move.
Second.
I have a first and a second. Any discussion? I would just like to thank those donors that made donations this month. It is much appreciated. And,
Just make sure we highlight letter I.
yep, that's where I was going next. Do you want to highlight that?
Huh?
You want to handle that?
We got two of them. We got two, Deb Stalker.
We do.
What was her start date?
I don't know exactly her start date, but what I do know is she was the first full-time athletic secretary the district ever hired. So she worked in various capacities so she really, this was a really difficult decision for her because, I mean, I see her send out emails at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning because she'll be like, wake up and it's like, oh my gosh, I gotta make sure this. But this was difficult for her because she has put her heart and soul into the athletic program, and it actually physically looked painful for her to make this decision. But I think that she and her husband Tom, once she gets through of, you know, I don't go to work today, I don't have to do this, I think that she and Tom are gonna be able to travel and do those fall drives that they want to do and play with the dog during the day. And I'm excited for her. I don't know that she's excited yet, but when you see her, make sure that you give her a pat on the back because I really truly believe that she's going to really enjoy this now that she's made that decision, and she'll be done February 1.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you to her because, I mean, it's a lot of years.
Yes.
Deb's one of the people that I remember seeing first in the district when I came here, so mention that. And obviously, your tenure here has been incredible, so thank you.
Thank you.
So fun fact, Deb Stockard was a real estate agent before she worked for the schools. She sold me my first house in Streetsboro. So she was our real estate agent. So we had made the decision to move to Streetsboro, and we're in an apartment for a short period of time. I was pregnant with Sydney and bought a house from her. So.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, fun fact. So it's again, very thankful for the years of service, specifically in the athletics department. And Mike, like I said, I'm going to save my comments until later because we've got a full year with you. So we're going to continue the work. But, to both of you, I am thankful seems to be the right word. Definitely better than when you came. And I'm looking forward to the next year. Anybody else? Okay. Mr. Haynes?
Mrs. Bedford?
Yes.
Mr. Grimm?
Yes.
Mrs. Campbell?
Yes.
Mrs. Epple?
Yes.
Mr. Viola?
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. Moving on to superintendent's recommendation.
I have one item. Item A, it's recommended the Board of Education approve the hiring of John Hannon as the new athletics secretary, 8 hours per day, effective January 3rd, 2024.
I'll move.
Second.
We have a first and a second. Any discussion?
Yeah, just quickly, John is very excited to kind of step in and take over. He's going to work beside Deb for about a month, and so she can impart years of knowledge on him in a very short period of time. John's excited. He has a lot of ideas that he wants to try out, so I think that we're going to see some different things happen. But again, those two will be working side by side for a month, and then when Deb officially retires at the 1st of February, John Hanna will take over, and he's real excited, and I'm sure he'd appreciate it if you guys reached out to him and wished him luck.
Absolutely. Okay,
Plus
Ms.
a ton of commitment from the young man to the city of Streetsboro already, so.
Yes,
I mean, he does it all. He
He's
does
done
it
a
all.
good job.
Yeah. Very excited to have him.
absolutely. Mr. Haynes?
Mr. Viola?
Yes.
Mrs. Epple?
Yes.
Mrs. Bedford?
Yes.
Mrs. Campbell?
Yes.
Mr. Grimm?
Yes.
Motion carries. Moving on to Chief Business Officer's recommendations.
Thank you. I have a few this evening. It is recommended the Board of Education accept the bid from Rush Truck Center through the Ohio Schools Council bids for the purchase of one conventional international bus with lift totaling $129,123 to be paid from permanent improvement funds.
Motion to approve?
I'll second.
We have a first and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. Mr. Haynes?
Mr. Grimm?
Yes.
Mr. Viola?
Yes.
Mrs. Bedford?
Yes.
Mrs. Campbell?
Yes.
Mrs. Epple?
Yes.
Okay, motion carries.
Thank you, Board. My second recommendation, it is recommended the Board of Education approve the contract to purchase and install a Generac generator from Generator One for $13,192.05 for the board office using permanent improvement funds.
So moved.
I'll second.
We have a first and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. Mr. Haynes?
Mr. Viola?
Yes.
Mrs. Bedford?
Yes.
Mrs. Campbell?
Yes.
Mrs. Epple?
Yes.
Mr. Grimm?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Board. My third recommendation, it is recommended the Board of Education approve the attached purchases for SHS, SMS, HDI, and SES using the OFCC Safety Grant and Permanent Improvement Funds.
Motion to approve?
I'll second. We have a first and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. Mr. Haynes?
Mr. Grimm?
Yes.
Mrs. Campbell?
Yes.
Mrs. Bedford?
Yes.
Mrs. Epple?
Yes.
Mr. Viola?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Board. My final recommendation this evening, it is recommended the Board of Education approve the contract and resolution using the Ohio Schools Council contract with GPD Group for professional services up to $75,000 at the Central Services Department.
I'll move.
Second.
We have a first and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. Mr. Haynes?
Mrs. Bedford?
Yes.
Mrs. Epple?
Yes.
Mrs. Campbell?
Yes.
Mr. Grimm?
Yes.
Mr. Viola?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Board. That concludes my recommendations this evening.
Thank you. Moving on to new business. Anything? Nothing. Old business? One more time, Violi, one more time?
We all talked about old stuff already.
Okay.
We're good.
Okay, moving on to board president's recommendation. It is recommended the 2024 organizational meeting be scheduled for January 11th, 2024 at 5:45, Streetsboro High School, with the board's regular monthly meeting to follow.
I'll move.
I'll second.
We have a first and a second. Any discussion?
I won't be here,
And
so
a
it doesn't
third?
matter to me,
Oh, be quiet. You better be watching
probably.
from there.
I don't know about that.
Mr. Haynes?
Mrs. Bedford?
Yes.
Mr. Grimm?
Yes.
Mrs. Campbell?
Yes.
Mrs. Epple?
Yes.
Mr. Violi?
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. Moving on to, it is recommended the 2023 Board Vice President Kristen Bedford serve as President Pro Tem at the organizational meeting on January 11th, 2024, until the board appoints the successor.
I'll move.
Second.
It's the two of them. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none. Mr. Haynes?
Mr. Violi?
Yes.
Mr. Grimm?
Yes.
Mrs. Bedford?
Can I vote on this?
Yeah.
Yes.
Mrs. Campbell?
Yes.
Mrs. Epple?
Just making sure.
Okay, motion carries. Board policy update. It is recommended the Board of Education approve the updates to policy 2.04 as shown in the attachment.
Motion to approve?
Second.
We have a first and a second. Any discussion?
Yeah, just to remind everyone, this is just a quick cleanup when we transitioned from Neola to the Pebble and Wagner policies. We needed to update and include now in the board policy severance, which is what you pay out to administrators when they retire. That way it doesn't have to be a part of every one of their contracts. So this is to update the severance language.
Thank you, Mr. Dalbaugh. Mr.
Mr. Grimm?
Yes.
Mr. Violi?
Yes.
Mrs. Bedford?
Yes.
Mrs. Campbell?
Yes.
Mrs. Epple?
Yes.
Motion carries. Moving on to, it is recommended the Board of Education enter an executive session to consider the employment with respect to a public employee or official, to consider the compensation with respect to a public employee or official, to consider the discipline with respect to a public employee or official, and to discuss matters required to be kept confidential by federal law or regulations or state statutes with possible action to follow.
I will move.
Second.
We have a first and a second. Any discussion? I assume not. Mr. Haynes?
Mrs. Bedford?
Yes.
Mr. Grimm?
Yes.
Mrs. Campbell?
Yes.
Mrs. Epple?
Yes.
Mr. Violi?
Yes.
Okay, board is in executive session. There you go, girlfriend.
The more words there are, the longer it's going to be.